Episode 78 Growing Pains. Hey Siri, set a timer for 7 minutes. Okay, so I am giving myself a hard stop with this intro at 7 minutes. And I guess, I don't know, the first question is why seven? I thought maybe five was too short, but that maybe 10 was too long. So I don't know. Honestly, I'm just making this up as I go along. And maybe I go shorter than 7 minutes. So, what you are about to hear after my timer goes off, unless I do go shorter than 7 minutes, is something I recorded on March 30th, 2024, about 2 weeks before I basically disappeared from the hobby and social media without any notice or heads up to anyone. There are two such episodes, this one and another one that I plan to publish after this one. And that one was about getting into a break and just, I don't know, a stream of consciousness, just continue to experiment with this medium and I don't know, just process my thoughts, I guess. But I really did grapple with whether to release this episode and the next one. I mean, these are recordings from the past. And when I listen back, just kind of briefly here and there, I will very much admit it was really hard for me to listen to them. But then again, every podcast recording I make is difficult for me to listen back to. Um, I know that I am a happier and healthier person now than the person I was when I recorded those back in March. A lot has happened since then. For example, a side note is the 1 year anniversary of launching this podcast. But with my return back into the hobby and social media, which is mainly Instagram, and I do now have a blue verified check mark, which is another story of its own, or maybe it's all like intertwined. But no one has really pressed me on where I've been. I've really only had people just say publicly or privately that they're glad I'm back. And, I had people who were concerned when I was gone, but I wasn't reading my DMs. And I mean, I think that's all to just say I really thank each and every one of you who expressed your concerns and, uh, shared your thoughts of gratitude, which I am in return truly grateful for. What I do know is that my relationship with the hobby and social media is changing. Yours maybe too. And hopefully it's for the better. And I think it has to be for the better because just speaking for myself, it just was not sustainable or healthy. I, you know, kept thinking back to this comment or conversation that I was having with Cage Lawyer on an earlier podcast episode about run your own race and you know just this idea of is there even a race. And I just kept thinking, yeah, just run the race. But I think I was just like trying to sprint it. I was just the hobby. I just let the hobby consume me as a consumer and as a creator. And it just was not sustainable. You can't sprint a marathon. And I do want to be in this hobby for the long run, not just a short time. And it just wasn't healthy or sustainable the way that I was going, the pace that I was going, the many different things that I was doing within the hobby. I talk about the many activities you can do in the hobby because it's such an encompassing space. And I'm taking all of my personal stuff outside. I'm not talking about all of that stuff as to the reasons why I took a break, but I think it was a much needed break. And setting myself stronger boundaries and putting limits with my hobby time, which is such an interesting day to record this. I'm recording this on the evening of July 7th. I'm saying this on a day when all I had planned was to just make some content like, I don't know, this YouTube and Instagram just about opening up 2 boxes of 23, $24 optic mega boxes and doing a box battle and all this stuff. And then of course I'm just on Instagram and scrolling. I do have an app limit. I have a time limit on my app, for my phone, I mean. And I did adhere to it, but as I was consuming the content and I was talking to people, there's like this little bit of news came out about the PSA vending machine, which had the sign or the insignia or the name of PSA removed from the vending machine. And just, I don't know, I just felt like I had to like report it. Like, I'm not a reporter, I'm not a hobby reporter or by any means, but I just felt like I had to share it out. So I'm like shopping in Costco for my family, and I'm just like, let me sit in one of those sofas, one of those sets that people just sit on. And I was like, let me just make this quick post and send it out, and experience that dopamine hit, I guess. Social media truly is addictive. It's an addiction. And again, man, I don't even know how close I am to my 7 minutes, but ooh, wow, less than a minute. Yeah, just pulled my first Wemby. I'm in Costco doing the box battle. I didn't make content about opening a blaster box of NBA hoops with my kids. That was their present to me for Father's Day, which is another event that happens. I just kept delaying opening it because, when it was Father's Day, I just wasn't ready to come back to the hobby. I did wish some people happy Father's Day and all that, but I think, why I came back is more important than, where was I before coming back. And I think it really is. And I think I talk about this in this episode is I love this. I truly do. I love the creating podcasts and recording podcasts, creating content. There goes my timer. I don't even like calling it content, to be honest with you. Um, so, okay, I did say I was going to stop. So thank you for listening to me ramble. And what you're about to hear is just more of me rambling. But please keep in mind that this is from March 30th, 2024, but it is indeed me. But I do think the podcast version of me is the true me, and that the Instagram version of me or the social media version of me is just this character or some character. I don't know. It is me, but it's just maybe a caricature of myself. I don't know. Still all just figuring this out. So anyway, without further ado, please enjoy the episode that I call Growing Pains and the Hobby is My Hobby. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to try something new here. This is going to be both a video on YouTube and also an audio for just the podcast. I am using StreamYard. I am, I don't know, there's a lot that I want to kind of explain and about podcasting and just show more, I don't know, behind the scenes. I do have a Blue Yeti. This headset, I got to get a better one. I don't think this is a really good headset. Sometimes it goes in and out in inopportune times. But I love doing this. I love doing these podcasts. I don't even know how much I want to grow my YouTube. This episode I'm going to be calling Growing Pains. This is going to be a monologue episode. Okay. So this is going to be about my cardboard journey or the content creation journey up to this point. And so if you don't want to hear me talking about me, then it's probably best for both of us if you skip this episode, because this one is, one of the monologue episodes where there's no special guest, there's no knowledge or information dropped by at least someone who is, like experienced or, is a master in their field. This is just me talking. I have some talking points here. Uh, some of it's stream of consciousness. We just go in and out. And some people love these episodes, some people don't, and that's fine. Just consume what you want to consume, right? Just the content that you like, go ahead and consume that. Don't consume the content you don't like. So, just recently, I put up a string of story posts on Instagram about wanting to reignite my YouTube channel. I did create it a while back. I have uploaded some videos, but it's been dormant for so long, and it's been a place where I would cross post some YouTube shorts, and I did some stuff here and there. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know that you could do like this RSS feed from podcasters by Spotify into YouTube. Like podcasters pushes through into Spotify and Apple Music and I think Overcast, but I didn't know it did it through YouTube. So I just uploaded everything up to this point. So the last, what is it, 70 or so episodes, I just pushed them all on one evening earlier this week. And I am recording this the last week of March. So yeah, I tried vlogs a little bit, especially around the Chantilly show in October, because I had this media pass and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do something fun, do something different. Didn't really like editing long form. Didn't really like. There's a lot of things that I just didn't like about it, but just because you don't like doing things doesn't mean that you don't try to give it another shot. I know there's this saying, at least with a food critic, Tom Sietsma, with the Washington Post, when he reviews a restaurant, he doesn't just go once; he goes like 3 times, and he just tries to get a better feel for that place before he gives a review. I'm not doing food reviews, at least not yet. I know someone recently asked me, if you didn't do hobby content, what would you do? And I was like, man, I would love to just do food content. I would just love to just eat and just sometimes for free, sometimes not, but just do food. Um, but yeah, no, this whole podcast, this isn't like an episode 100 or commemorating where I've, just looking back. I think sometimes it's just good to look back and reflect. Um, I don't need a particular date or special event for that to occur. I'm coming up. I'm 3/4 of the way to 100. I'm 10 months into the podcast journey, which come end of May, 2 months from now, is when I'll feel like it's like the birthday of the podcast. But I just wanted to just press record and talk. Um, I love short form content. I do all my edits on my phone, and quite frankly, sometimes it just depends on how much data or storage space I have on my phone as to whether I can record for a long time and edit in long time. I do my edits in CapCut. Speaking of my camera roll, I mean, for a while, for the longest time before the hobby, it was just pictures of my family, my kids, my wife, uh, during the pandemic, our puppy, and now it's just like cards. It's just all cards. It's just screenshots of cards I want to buy, content, screenshots or taking pictures of cards that I'm trying to put up on eBay, my PC cards, just all variations and types of cards. Just cards, 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 cards. And and the cards, of course, are just dudes, and of course dudettes, doing something athletic, right? And it's captured in picture form, and then that picture is affixed to this 2.5 inch by 3.5 inch piece of cardboard. Um, and I can't remember if I made that joke somewhere else, but like metric system. I don't know what it is, but at least in the British, oh my gosh, I can't the pound system. I don't even know what am I talking about here, but it's affixed onto that. And I'm not talking about tall boys and all that. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked clearly, but they're randomly inserted into packs, and then you open up the packs. Nowadays, you do so much more, right? Clean it, grade it, flip it, sell it, trade it. It's like that Daft Punk song, Technologique or something like that. So getting this train back on track. I haven't done much YouTube because that need or want to scratch this creative itch. Like, why do I make content? It's silly. I'm not here trying to monetize it. I'm really here to like have fun with it. I I have talked about it in the past. I don't get into specifics about this, but I have a pretty mundane, run of the mill, boring like desk job, or like a just kind of like computer work, and it's not very interesting. I don't get to flex my creative muscles or utilize my creativity that I sometimes think I have, and sometimes I think I don't, and that's why I don't, do anything creative full time. Or have I ever done any creative, like schooling or education? But I scratched that creative itch that I feel like I do have through the hobby content. And when it comes to hobby content in long form, when it's not like, something that has to do with visual or audio, I'm sorry, like video, it's an audio form and it's in podcast form. And so it's the podcast. And I know I said I'm starting to record on StreamYard, and I might try to record more of these monologue episodes for it to go up. But for me, my creative itch has been scratched by short form Instagram content and long form podcast, and sometimes a little bit with the writing, which I realize just I love to write. I want to do more writing. It's just that I just don't have time for it. Um, and when it comes to this podcast, 10 months in, I recently kind of screen grabbed and I wanted to share out where I'm at with it. So if 2/3 of my listenership is no, what is it? 1/3 of my listenership is Spotify, and that's around 60 to 70. I think I can easily extrapolate that to about 200 listeners on average per episode, which is just awesome. And this, like I said, really early on in this podcast, I started from zero, started from nothing, and I know I haven't been consistent with publishing episodes every particular day of the week, or every particular time of the day. I think I can do a better job of scheduling the publishing of the episodes. But I'm human. I'm a one man show, and I have so many other competing interests in my hobby time, and which is in addition to my actual personal life and work life and all that. And I know that I'm not the only one. All of us, we continuously tell ourselves that um, life takes priority, and yet I don't know about you. I can't help but I can't help but keep thinking about cards or the hobby, whether it's content or buying cards or making a deal or anything. This podcast, like I just have my notes app and I just type little notes in about what I want to talk about in my next episode, whether it's with a guest or it's a monologue episode. And I'm on my phone. My kids are talking to me. I'm on my phone, and and almost always it's about something card related. And when I'm talking to people who are not in the hobby at all, right? It's not just it's friends, family, work people, just you're just on your phone. You're waiting in line somewhere, you're on your phone. So, it's that, but that's a whole nother topic, I think, for another time. Um Usually I would pause around the 10-minute mark, but since you know what? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna press pause on the StreamYard, get a drink, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I don't think that I put in any ad or sponsored thing in the middle, mainly because with this StreamYard recording, before I would just do these monologue episodes without StreamYard, without recording video, and it would be through Spotify for podcasters. And it would, if I paused it and I made a new recording, I would be able to like splice in an ad. I don't know if I can do that with StreamYard, so I'll have to figure that out. But it's good for me to kind of stretch my back, which has been kind of achy. But we're not here to talk about that. The long story post where I talked about wanting to grow my YouTube and where I'm at with my Instagram and my podcast, you know, I no one really asked me like where did that come from. It's more of me kind of. I wanted to talk about why did that, you know, where did that come from? Saying that internally to myself. And I think the idea that I had was I got so behind making these promo reels for my guests. Um, the thing is, I don't really like consuming my own content in the sense that I don't like to look at long form of my face and hear my voice and have to edit it all. basically I'm taking 60 minutes of a conversation and trying to distill that into a 90-second reel, which I realize it can be longer. It's not considered a reel at that point. It's considered a post, which again, that's just kind of like Instagram stuff that I found out throughout my time making content. Um, and as I'm watching these conversations back, I have to look at my face, or I have to watch the video and I have to splice, and I'm just like, I don't want to do it. But I realized as I'm listening to these guests, I it's not that I owe them the promo reel, but I want to do it, right? It's like my small token of gratitude or appreciation for them to be on. So when I got behind, it's like anything in life, the more you get behind, the more you dread doing it. And at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I have to just do them. I have to just push through, think about not just my reluctance and be selfish and just go, I don't want to do it because I don't want it to feel like work. But it was me just being like, it's more important to show the gratitude. So I was like, you know what? Let me just power through. So I started with the breakers, and I'm listening to these guests, and I realize, man, they're taking so much crap from the public. And, as somewhat of an like an empath, I feel like I absorb that the crap that they feel, and I feel that stress. And, the story post and my recent content getting more maybe edgy or a little bit more darker. It's kind of like I don't know, like, I'm human. Like I said, like, I'm not always happy-go-lucky, or I'm not always optimistic. I'm not always this or always that. I have my bad days like everyone else. It's just that I think for a while I just didn't want to, you know, um, show that maybe. I don't know. But, I just I sometimes get into dark places with my thoughts of the hobby, and just my content, I think, has shown that a little bit more, because I am in a way getting more weary or wary of the BS and the trolls and the hate and the hobby. But I also know that it comes with the territory. It's a given almost. It's a constant. It's not going to change. That's social media. That is life. And que sera, sera, right? Whatever will be, will be. Um, I need to take another break. BRB. Okay, sorry, I had to take that call. This episode, right? The title of this episode is Growing Pains. And, first off, great show, right? I mean, my 90s collectors know what's up. The newer folks, maybe not so much, but, Gen Z isn't really listening to podcasts, which is fine with me. I am getting to know my audience, at least from a analytical demographic standpoint, but also through those who reach out to me by DM telling me, the audio is good or bad, better, worse, some opinions that were, well thought out, or maybe not as much, which, by the way, thank you. All the feedback that I receive, I take to heart, and I'm always looking to improve. I really am. So for those of you who reach out, thank you so much. But yeah, so from a demographic standpoint, the Zillennials, they're you guys aren't listening unless somehow you have like your parents' account, and the demographics say that you are like a 45-year-old person. But anyway, going back to Growing Pains, other than being a really good TV show, I didn't realize that it was a real physiological thing. For some of you, you're like, "What are you talking about?" That's why it was called that. The show was called Growing Pains for a reason. But sorry, I didn't. My parents are immigrants. I don't know. That's a bad cop out answer. But no, I really didn't. So for those of you who are like me, who didn't know that it was a real thing, I am not. You should just Google WebMD. This is not me purporting to know any medical information whatsoever, but little kids, especially little kids, I guess I should say, but when they're growing, their bones expand and their body's expanding, all the stuff, right? I mean, I think the only thing that doesn't grow is like your eyes. Like, apparently a baby's eyes are the same size as like an old person's eyes, and that's why kids or babies are so beautiful is because their eyes are so big in proportion to their head and all that. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is that we grow, and our bodies grow, and our bones expand, and in that growing process, it hurts. Um, and I remember as a kid feeling achy and things hurt, and I guess I just didn't know that they were called growing pains. So, I found this out when my kids were younger, and the pediatrician told me this. And I said to the pediatrician, like, "What do you mean? Like, is that like a TV show?" And she's like, "Yeah. Where do you think it came from?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I think that's when I made the joke that my parents were immigrants. That and our pediatrician, she's of Asian descent as well, so we had a good laugh about that. But growing pains, wonder years, childhood stuff. Um, I want to do an episode in the future, just not now, about whether nostalgia is enough. And that's something that I touched on when I had Cage Lawyer on the podcast, which, with the timing of all this, I have already recorded that episode. I think that it's either going to come before or after this current one you're listening to. But I haven't fully figured that out, like the scheduling and the publishing schedule. I should probably have a better beat on it. I just don't. I'm sorry. But that's the beauty of that's the beauty of this whole thing is just I kind of do this as I go along. This isn't the job. This is me getting to have some fun and feel more creative. And so, going back to the question that I posed to Cage, who was an excellent, excellent guest, just probably one of my favorite conversations. And I said this in the podcast, but he in currently is in my five most influential people in my hobby life. I can say it like that. And so the question I posed was: is nostalgia enough for the modern day collector? And by that I meant, in a way, can you stay in this hobby and be an active participant through merely the concept of nostalgia? And we had a good discussion about that. And for me, I think that certainly the answer is yes for quite a number of folks, right? But for some people, it isn't, because they came in their, say their midlife crisis, or in their 40s, and they remember cards as a kid, and they've come in, they kind of bought what they liked, and they had a good time, and then they left. And that's not just the graders and not graders. It's not just the flippers who are leaving the hobby. It's also people who wanted to scratch that itch, not the creative itch, but they wanted to scratch that nostalgic itch, and they did, and it was enough for them. And then maybe through seeing how much nonsense and noise, which I guess I will include myself into, they said, "This is enough for me." And then after post pandemic world we currently live in, things open up. There's spring break, there's vacations, there's more things you have to spend money on or want to spend money on. So both your time and your resources, and I guess a third being your attention span, they all just get pushed back into pre-pandemic levels, and people have left. And so there's been expansion and contraction, and I don't have the data on it. I just know anecdotally through people who have left because the easy money dried up, or they just felt like this was enough for them and they had fun, but it's time to get back to pre-pandemic busyness, not business, but busyness. So, did I just have the whole talk just now? just by stream of consciousness? I might have. Okay, so going back to growing pains. Okay, content creator growing pains, social media growing pains, podcasts, YouTubes, like what do I mean by that, right? I mean, growing pains, when we talk about kids having it, it's like this internal pain. Um, the external pain is easy, I think, in a way to just explain it. I've mentioned it in my social media posts. It's the haters, the doubters, the lurkers, people um who want to see this podcast not do well or want to see me fail. And I won't get into my DMs, but people kind of warning me about that. And I want to be very clear in saying that I do not mean people with constructive feedback with appropriate tone. Tone is everything. You can give someone feedback in a way that can be disrespectful or unprofessional. And again, this isn't like a profession for us, but we know the difference between civil, cordial tones and the opposite. And so there are people who have commented about my cards, my content, my eBay sales, and my appearance, my handwriting, my weight, my voice. Like, oh my gosh. It's like, are you serious? Are you serious? But it happens. It really does. And I don't know. I part of me is just like I want to detach from that. I don't like it. One thing I will say, thankfully, and I really do mean thankfully. I don't mean this jokingly at all. No one yet, and I hope it's not just a yet. No one has made a crass comment or a disrespectful comment about my race. So that's good, I guess. Right? I mean, there's been no racism lobbied at me. Wow, what a low bar. But the reason I say this is because I know that as my platform, and I don't even like that word. It's like the whole like algorithm, platform, content. It's just like, ugh, yikes, ugh. I don't really like that. But as my whatever gets bigger, and I know that people are going to be kind of more critical. I get that. But even being called Denny No Cards, just like such a first of all, really good dig. Pretty funny. I like that. But yeah. So that's the external pain. And then I just feel like whatever I do, like let's say I lose 50 pounds, it's gonna be something else. Then it's gonna be my handwriting, like I said. And then I go to a handwriting school or classes, and my handwriting looks like I can write these beautiful old-timey English, with a feather, just cursive, and then it'll be something else, right? So I recently made a post about how, yeah, people always say, just be yourself. And then they just bash you once you show who you are. You show yourself and it's too silly or it's too ridiculous. And then, it's the same people who say, collect what you like, collect what you love. But then they'll criticize you for buying modern wax, ultra modern singles, buying Monopoly Prism, buying Topps Big League. Oh, you're a clout chaser. You're chasing these cards. And it's like, you just told me collect what you like. And now you're criticizing what my consumer purchasing predilections. I don't know. So I don't know. I just feel like if you are the type of person who has ever uttered the words buy what you like, collect what you love, you absolutely better not criticize someone for doing just that. I mean, you can if you want, but you do realize that that makes you an absolute hypocrite, right? And also, if you, the listener, ever sees me or hears me engage in that type of behavior online or in person, especially after I just called out people who do that, please, by all means, call me out on it. I'm serious because I shouldn't be doing that, right? Especially it would be such a hypocritical thing for me to now comment, "Oh my gosh, you collect hockey cards, you collect women's basketball cards," which by the way are two things that I'm trying to get into more. But, I shouldn't do that. I really shouldn't. People do that with the sports and non-sports, right? Pokemon collectors like, "Oh, these sports people suck." Sports people being like, "Oh, these Pokemon ridiculous cosplayers, these Comic Con cosplayers." Well, you're literally wearing the jersey of the quarterback of your team, right? I mean, that's cosplay. So, anyway, I going back to that story post where I kind of like was showing some sort of like, I'm at a crossroads and trying to do this YouTube stuff. I made the story post and I showed my YouTube numbers. They're like the views are in the single digits, and it was embarrassing. And I think I might have overcompensated because of that feeling of shame or embarrassingness. embarrassment, I mean, to show like where my numbers were from the podcast and from my Instagram account. And I set myself a 1-year timer because I want to see a year from now what those numbers look like. My YouTube subscribers, it's somewhere in the low 70s right now. Views are less than 1,000. Just some YouTube shorts and here and there, and again, older videos that didn't get traction because I didn't know how to make thumbnails. I'm getting better at that. I didn't know how to edit more long form. I mean, I knew how to do it. I just didn't want to put the time into it, I think. So I'm trying to do more of that just to give just because, like, I don't know, it's not like I mastered short form content, but I'm looking at the short form content out there in Instagram, and there's some people who do some amazing things, and I really like it, and I want to get better at my short form content. But there's some people I'm just like, man, this is low effort. This is terrible. This is like people just post up a card. There's no context. There's no captions. It's just like, what is this? Someone publicizing their whatnot stream or their, wow, this is the last big pull that I had. So that's indicative of why you should break with me, or come to my whatnot stream and I'm giving away $10,000. Like, come on. So I want to do I want to try YouTube. It's a challenge, but let's see if I'm able to, right? So this is me kind of putting myself in the hot seat in a way, and giving myself a 1-year timer. There's this my kids, they love I mean, when you have young kids, you watch all the cartoon movies and all that, but Sing, right? A lot of people like that movie. I remember one of the very first scenes of the first Sing. It's Matthew McConaughey doing Mr. Moon, the little, what is it, koala, and he's like, everyone's chasing him, and then he cuts some sort of thing in the back of the theater stage that makes him go up, and he's like, there's no way to go but up. So I guess I kind of feel like that with my YouTube channel. Okay, I have single digit views. It's got to get better than that, right? How much do they go up? I don't know. uh I imagine it's going to be direct correlation with how much work I put in. Is it quality? Is it actually good? Is it informative? Is it educational? I think my YouTube content I may try to go more of a educational route because it's longer form. So do I put the work in, or do I kind of sort of put the work in? I would like to think that if I put a lot of work into it, that it grows well, but it could also be a dud. And maybe I am indeed what I say I am, which is a jack of all trades, and that's which is fine, because my livelihood doesn't rely on that. And so that's a good place to be. I don't feel as, you know, desperate as some of these other content creators where I don't know if they are, if it's their livelihood. But man, if you have a production crew and you are doing this full time, and you're not getting traction, or you have to buy followers and likes, like, oh gosh, like that's a tough place to be, I think. um Content wise, people have kind of suggested or advised me that I should do OBS, which, let me just quickly look up what it stands for. OBS, Studio? Oh, Open Broadcaster Software. Okay, so yeah, it's the thing that, even if I didn't look it up, because I don't even know what that means when you say it like that. But these other content creators and breakers, there's this thing where they do where you can see the person's face while they're opening up breaking or opening up wax or something like that. So that's what it is. It's almost like a two camera thing. There's also been strong suggestions that I create a Discord, because I keep talking about building community, and Discord is a great way to build community and have everyone just talking to everyone. That part, I just don't know, because it's important to be active on that and also have good moderators. I just don't. I don't know. I just right now I'm very hesitant to try that. But I know if I do it, that I would put a lot of time into it, and that's just the type of thing I do. Is when I did these promo reels, I can't just do one. I have to like make 4 or 5 of them at one time. I just have to like just just almost like batch listing my eBay auctions. I can't just list 3 cards up for sale. I have to do 20. I have to do 30. My max has been like 50 in one day. And that's just the way that, I don't know. That's my makeup. That's the way I'm built, I guess. So I guess the question is, this whole internal growing pains. Why even try to grow the audience and viewership, right? I mean, it's like the numbers are just a vanity metric at the end of the day. But you know, am I doing it for my vanity, my ego? And I guess I'm here to say something that I don't think a lot of people are going to say. And this may be one of my most like open and real, you know, podcast episodes or YouTubes or whatever. But I think that, there's a lot of motivations that people can have to make content, whether it's to monetize or they want to get with sponsors and brands and deals and get some free stuff or, so the financial aspect of things. But there's also the ego side, the stroking the ego. Um, I think that there is a part of that. And so I do have an ego, but everyone has an ego. Um, you have the, gosh, again, like the medical stuff. I don't have a psychological background, but I do know because I've learned, and I don't know if it's Freudian or whatever, but and this is going to be very psychoanalytical and call it sports card therapist or whatever, all that nonsense. But there's the id, ego, and superego, right? Man, woman, child of all ages, shapes, and colors. We all have those three things. And I have an ego, just like every single person listening to this podcast episode has. And you can't lie. Don't lie to yourself. But of course, the person we end up most often lying to is ourselves. But when it comes to having the ego, it's a matter of how big or small it is. And I think at the end of the day, I don't know how to measure my ego, right? Is it like relative to other people's egos? I think at the end of the day, I want my voice to be heard. In the beginning, I was like, yeah, it'd be great to like just encapsulate my thoughts along the way and have people join. This really was supposed to be a limited podcast series. When I pitched this, and I'll talk about this maybe down the road, but I pitched this to two hobby podcast networks, and I was like, yeah, it's gonna be 12 episodes, 10 to 12 episodes, in and out, done. It'll be kind of like serial or something short, and then it's like a season, and then you're done. And I ended up realizing I love it and I want to keep making it. I want to keep doing this. But and I hope what I am saying is good, quote unquote, podcast content. But like I don't know, maybe it's not. I'm just speaking into a microphone right now. I don't know how this is going to land unless people tell me. So other people, I think that I can't get into their intentions or reasons for doing things, but there are people who want to leave something behind, for their next, I don't know, next generation, next of kin, but something that encapsulates my voice. I don't know. I used to think my kids were going to listen to this. They're not going to listen to this. My grandkids, maybe. I don't know. Or how do they? Do I have to pay for this to be like preserved for decades and decades? I don't know. But when it comes to having this podcast, it's really enriched my hobby experience. I really enjoy it. It's not for everyone. Um, some people are, it just depends on who you are and what you want to do. And for me, I just like getting my voice out there, but I also know that I don't have to publish it. I remember someone when I early on I said, "Oh, it's okay if no one listens to this podcast." I think I was lying to myself, to be honest with you. Like who wants to just talk in outer space and have no one hear you? And so if the words have ever come out of your mouth about please like or subscribe or share this with someone that you know, then you want it to grow. Okay. So I think the numbers do matter. And I do think that I have an ego, you have an ego. How big they are, I don't know. But um I make content for to scratch the creative itch and to what is it, like, fill my ego meter. I don't know, but I do it. And so it's something that I'll have to process more and think about, and maybe I'll talk more about it in the future. But that, I don't know how it correlates with confidence. Like, is confidence a part of ego? I don't know. But I do know that when it comes to my confidence, it has definitely waxed and waned before the hobby, currently now. And what I have really realized is social media, the internet, there is quite a, how do you say, non de minimis number of people on the internet that absolutely hate people who have an ego or show that they have an ego, which I think is very human, but they hate ego, they hate confidence. They want to take confident people online down a notch or two with their words. Um, I think a lot of it comes down to they don't have that within themselves and they lash out. And these are what I would call, the trolls, the haters. But my empathy with that mindset is lies in the fact that when I was just a content consumer myself before I started making content for the hobby, because it's not like I used to make food content or I'm used to make, other content, cars or, fishing, whatever, you know, sports. Like, I just, this is, I'm new in content creation, but before I was a content creator or producer, and maybe even before I had, kids and wife. So I'm talking about me in my 20s. I did have less confidence in myself, and who I was. It's just that's a lot of the people that I guess follow me on Instagram, and so it's not to excuse that type of behavior. I do think that's sillier when it comes from someone who's a contemporary of mine or who's of similar age or who has the same struggles that I do as a parent in the hobby, and yet they want to criticize my choices or whatever I do. I think that's ridiculous, or maybe less sympathetic is the way I should put it. But, I'm going to just take an educated guess and say that if you are an older listener, that you too had some youthful exuberance and, have made some regrettable decisions in life. Hopefully not big ones, but small ones. And I don't know. I think I'm very happy and glad and fortunate to be in the current hobby space in 2024 as a 41-year-old as opposed to a 21-year-old, because I could not even imagine the amount of, I don't know, pressure I would feel from seeing these super expensive cards and feeling like I needed to chase them and I needed to rip wax. I needed to get into group breaks. The FOMO, the fear of missing out that I know a lot of podcasters, but shout out to Iowa Dave for talking about on his podcast, The Shallow End. Um, and I just I can't imagine the amount of pressure that's put on, especially the youth. I'm talking about the 20-year-old, the kids in their not kids, the adults in their 20s, but also the teenagers. Just seeing these crazy cards and saying, I need to level up. And don't get me wrong, I want to level up. I see the big cards. I would love them, but I also know that, once you're not getting allowance and you need to make your own money and it's commingled, you have to make some very you do have to be disciplined because you don't have the money tree. So I just feel like the hobby should be fun, but I think the not fun part is the expensive part, it's the stressful part, and it's the part that I think makes people a little bit more, say, nutty online, and they get a little bit more, ruffled, or they become more fuddy-duddy because there's just so much more at stake. Um, that's the thrill sometimes, I think. think that's the part that, gets people going. If you've ever played poker, you can play small stakes and your heart won't beat out of your chest. And when you are in a big pot and there's meaningful money in the middle, you that's when your heart wants to leap out of its chest, and you do show maybe different mannerisms that people try to pick up on and figure out what your tell is, because you are trying to be as cool as a cucumber, but inside you are just a furnace and you're just feeling like all the emotions and the roller coaster and the thoughts. And so I think right now that's the hobby. Um, or maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not here to explain what things are or are not. I mainly wanted to make this episode. I should wrap it up. We're at the 40-minute mark. Creating content for the hobby is my hobby. So maybe I'll amend the episode title to not just be growing pains, but like growing pains and content creation is my hobby or something like that. So the hobby is the cards. That is why we're here. Cage reminded me of that so much, and I do agree with him 100%. But it's not just about the cards, it's about the community, it's about the relationships, it's about the communal nostalgia that some of us 90s collectors have together. And so and yeah, just growing my content, trying different things. I could just stand pat and do the same thing every single week, day, week, month, and I don't know if I would grow. I might be changing things up too quickly, but again, that's just my makeup. Is I don't want to. I just get antsy just doing the same thing over and over. So I want to try different things. So again, this might have been like the worst episode in the world. It could have been one of my better ones. I don't know. Please let me know what you think, because I am kind of a little bit more hair down and kind of just speaking to you, but in a way, just dialoguing with myself, my internal monologue about I feel like it is to be in the hobby personally, as a content creator, as a participant, just the state of content in general. And my conversation with Cage would get into that quite often. And so, just in general, thank you so much for listening to this episode. It means the world to me. I used to say it a lot. I've stopped saying it just because I get into it with my guests and we're just talking. But like, to paraphrase Jay-Z, you could be listening to any other hobby podcast or Joe Rogan podcast, regular whatever podcast, sports podcast, knitting podcast, watching a YouTube video, doing anything else, but you're here with me. And for that, thank you so much. So that concludes today's episode of Growing Pains. Now I'm going to go watch some. All right, take care.